The Bible mentions a man named Nimrod in just a few short verses, yet his name has echoed through history as a symbol of rebellion against God. Ancient writings claim he built the Tower of Babel, established the First World Empire, and may have even tried to resurrect the pre-flood world of the Nephilim. By the end of this video, you're going to discover why Nimrod might be one of the most significant and dangerous figures in ancient history, and why his legacy still affects our world today. Let me start with what the Bible actually tells us, and you'll see immediately how much is left unsaid. Genesis chapter 10 says Cush was the father of Nimrod, who became a mighty warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The first centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Uruk, Akkad, and Calneh in Shinar. From that land he went to Assyria, where he built Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, Calah, and Resen. This might sound straightforward, but every single phrase here contains mysteries. First, Nimrod becomes a mighty warrior on the earth. The Hebrew word used here is Gibor, which is the same word used to describe the Nephilim giants before the flood. It means a champion, a tyrant, a man of extraordinary strength and power. The text says he became this way, suggesting he wasn't born with this power, but acquired it somehow. Then we get the phrase mighty hunter before the Lord, and people have debated what this means for thousands of years. Some translations say before the Lord, but the Hebrew word can also mean against or in defiance of the Lord. The Jewish historian Josephus, writing in the 1st century, said that Nimrod persuaded people to believe their prosperity came from their own strength rather than from God. He was hunting not just animals, but the souls of men, turning them away from God and toward himself. Nimrod's kingdom starts in Shinar, which is Babylon. The very next chapter in Genesis tells the story of the Tower of Babel, which happens in the land of Shinar. The Bible never explicitly says Nimrod built the tower, but the connection is obvious. Nimrod establishes his kingdom in Shinar, and suddenly there's a massive building project in Shinar, designed to reach heaven and make a name for humanity. Jewish and Christian writings unanimously identify Nimrod as the driving force behind Babel. The Tower of Babel story reveals the heart of what Nimrod represented. The people said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." This was direct rebellion against God's command to fill the earth. Nimrod gathered everyone together in one place to build a monument to human achievement. And if you want to know the explanation of the Tower of Babel, I made a video about, and you can watch that after this one. I will put the link on the description below. Now let's continue. The Tower of Babel wasn't just a tall building, it was a ziggurat, which was essentially a man-made mountain with a temple at the top for pagan worship. Ancient ziggurats were designed as stairways between earth and heaven, where the gods could descend and humans could ascend. Nimrod was trying to create a bridge to the spiritual realm, possibly attempting to reconnect with the fallen angels who had corrupted the world before the flood. Ancient sources outside the Bible give us details that are absolutely chilling. The book of Jasher, which is referenced twice in the Old Testament, says that Nimrod wore the garments of skin that God made for Adam and Eve after they sinned. According to this tradition, these garments gave Nimrod authority over animals, and fear fell upon all creatures when he wore them. Whether you believe this account or see it as legend, it shows how ancient peoples understood Nimrod as someone who possessed supernatural power and authority. The Jewish Targums, which are ancient Aramaic translations and commentaries, say that Nimrod was a mighty hunter of the souls of men. He seduced them into rebellion and led them to worship fire instead of God. Some traditions say he threw Abraham into a fiery furnace when Abraham refused to worship idols, and God miraculously saved Abraham from the flames. Whether historically accurate or symbolic, these stories reveal how Nimrod was remembered as the first great persecutor of those who remained faithful to God. Here's what we know for certain from archaeology and history. Nimrod founded Babylon, which became the template for every empire that would rise against God throughout history. Babylon in Scripture always represents human civilization organized in rebellion against God. From Nimrod's Babylon to Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon to the symbolic Babylon in Revelation, we see the same pattern of pride, idolatry, and persecution of God's people. Nimrod also built Nineveh, which became the capital of the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians were known for their extreme cruelty and violence. They skinned people alive, impaled them on stakes, and created pyramids of human skulls to terrorize their enemies. This empire that committed such atrocities traces back to Nimrod. The cities he built became centers of wickedness that God would eventually judge and destroy. There's also a fascinating connection between Nimrod and the occult systems that would spread throughout the world. Many scholars believe Nimrod and his wife Semiramis established the Babylonian mystery religion that involved worship of the mother and child. After Nimrod died, Semiramis claimed she was pregnant through a divine miracle, and her son Tammuz was Nimrod reincarnated. This mother-child worship spread to Egypt as Isis and Horus, to Greece as Aphrodite and Eros, to Rome as Venus and Cupid, and influenced countless pagan religions. The prophet Ezekiel describes women in Jerusalem weeping for Tammuz, which shows how this Babylonian religion had infiltrated even God's people. The roots go back to Nimrod and the system he established. Every false religion that exalts human achievement, worships created things instead of the Creator, or promises supernatural power apart from God, can trace its DNA back to what Nimrod started in Babylon. Here's something most people never consider. Nimrod lived relatively soon after the flood. His grandfather was Ham, one of Noah's 3 sons. Nimrod would have heard first-hand accounts of the pre-flood world from his great-grandfather Noah. He knew about the Nephilim, the violence, the corruption, and God's judgment. Yet knowing all this, he chose to rebel anyway. What the Bible doesn't fully explain about Nimrod leaves us with haunting questions. What exactly made him a mighty warrior? Did he have supernatural help from fallen angels? What was the true purpose of the Tower of Babel? Was it just architecture, or an attempt at something darker? How did his mystery religion spread so effectively to every corner of the earth? Why does his influence still persist thousands of years later? What we do know is that Nimrod represents the first post-flood attempt to organize human civilization in open rebellion against God. He built cities that became synonymous with evil, established religious systems that led billions away from truth, and created a template for empire that every subsequent world power would follow. The Bible gives us just enough information to recognize the pattern and warn us about its return. Nimrod's legacy teaches us that human achievement apart from God always leads to pride, idolatry, and eventual judgment. The Tower of Babel fell, Babylon fell, Nineveh fell, and the final Babylon will fall when Christ returns. The question for us is, will we resist the spirit of Babel, or will we be swept up in humanity's latest attempt to storm heaven without God? Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and if you do, please consider subscribing and also like the video. Thanks again. See you in the next one.